Hey guys, so in this video we'll be going through trigonometry. So more specifically we'll be going through the sine rule and the cosine rule. So how to find the length using the sine rule, the angle using the sine rule, and also the length and angle using cosine rule. So I'm going to try and cover all of that in this one video, and I'll show you exactly the step-by-step procedures into doing it. And once you see this, it's very easy. It's not hard. All it is just a bunch of formulas that you need to remember, use to find this out, and then that's pretty much it. So let's look at these two questions that we have right now. So these two triangles, I guess, both of them are asking to find the length y and x. So this is going to be predominantly on the sine rule. So we're going to be focusing the sine rule. Now, for the sine rule, there is a formula that you need to know. So the sine rule is essentially sine A over A is equals to sine B over B. And I'll explain to you what these mean. Now, capital A and B basically are referring to the angle. So the big letters are referring to the angle, and then the small letter A and B, that refers to the length. So you need to make sure that you understand that bit first. So the capital A and B is the angle, and then the A and B small letter is the length. So how do we use this formula to solve for the first question? So the first question here is asking to find y. Okay, now all you're going to do is I'm going to use this formula. It's very easy. Check this out. So what you're going to do is, it doesn't matter which order you use a sine rule, the angle. So if I look at, for example, 45, the angle 45, I'm going to say sine 45 over, because remember I'm using the formula, over the opposite length. The opposite length to the angle 45 is y. So I'm going to do over y equals to, now my other angle here is sine 25 over the opposite length. So the opposite length to 25 is 2.5. So you could have written this here, and then you could have written this here. It doesn't matter which order, but as long as you understand that the angle is opposite the length, then you're good. Now all we're going to do is cross multiply. So we're going to say y times sine 25 is equals to 2.5 times sine 45. So when we want, because we want to find y, we're going to do 2.5 times sine 45 over sine 25. So if I put that in my calculator, that's going to be 2.5 times sine 45 and then divided by sine 25. So the answer would be 4.18, and that is your answer, centimeters. That's how you find the length using sine rule. Okay, so if we go through the second example here, we're going to use a formula again. This time it's asking us to find x. So it doesn't matter which angle you choose, whichever. So we'll say 35. So I'm going to say sine 35 over the opposite length to 35. What is the opposite length to 35? Is x, equals to, now let's look at the angle 50. So sine 50 over the opposite length to the angle 50. The opposite length to 50 is 10, right? All we do now is we're just going to cross multiply. So we're going to say x times sine 50 is equals to 10 times sine 35. So because you want to find x by itself, you're going to say 10 times sine 35 divided by sine 50. So again, if we put that in the calculator, that's going to be 10 times sine 35. Then we're going to divide that by sine 50. So the answer for that would be 7.49 centimeters. And that's how you use the sine rule to find the length. So make sure you write this down, the notes. This is literally the method, right? As long as you write the formula and you know how to apply the formula, you're good. Nothing too difficult there. And then the next one, what I'll do is I'll show you how to find the angle for the sine rule. Okay, so here's these two questions now to find the angle using the sine rule. So when you want to think, when you're thinking about what rule to use, sine rule normally is used when you have two angles involved. So when they've given you an angle or you're trying to find another angle. With cosine rule, as you're going to see, it normally involves just one angle. So when you're just trying to figure out which one to use, sine rule normally involves two angles. Okay, so if we're going to do this, so again, we're going to use the formula. So if you remember, the formula is sine A over A equals sine B over B. Now everything is going to stay the same, nothing changes. Okay, sine B over B, I guess. So we're going to look at, so theta is the question that we want to find, the parameter that we want to find. So I'm going to say sine theta over the opposite length of theta. The opposite length of theta is 21 equals to, now let's look at the 35. So we're going to say sine 35 over the opposite length to 35, which is 32. So we're going to do the same thing, cross multiply. So I'm going to say 32 times sine theta equals to 21 times sine 35. Right? Now, because we want to find theta by itself, so I'm going to say sine theta equals to 21 times sine 35 divided by 32. So if you put that in your calculator, what would that be? 21 times sine 35 and then divide that by 32. Now you're going to get sine theta is equals to 0.3764, right? But because we want to find theta, this is what you guys got to do in the calculator is you go press shift in your calculator, sine, and then put this value in, or you could put answer, I guess. And then that will give you the angle. So you got to be careful. So that's going to be 22.1 degrees. So it's not just sine theta equals this. This is not your answer. You need to find the angle. So you do shift sine. So when you press shift sine, you'll see a thing like this, sine minus 1 in your calculator. And essentially you're putting all of that in there. And then this is what gives you 22.1. Okay. So if we look at the second one, again, same thing. So I'm going to say sine theta over the opposite length, which is 12, equals to 40. So we'll say sine 40 over the opposite length, which is 21. Again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cross multiply. So we're going to say 21 times sine 40 is equals to 12 times sine 40. No, not sine 40, isn't it? It should be sine theta here. My bad. So 21 times sine theta equals to 12 times sine 40. So because you want to find sine theta, you're going to do 12 times sine 40 divided by 21. And when you put that, put that in your calculator. So 12 times sine 40 is equals to that divided by 21, and then press shift sine to get the answer. So that will give you 21.6 degrees, and that should be your answer. Okay, so here you basically have used the sine rule to find the length and the angle, and that's literally all it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'll give you two questions to give for you guys to try it out, and then I'll go through it, and then you can check if your answer is right or wrong. Right, so for the first one, if we use a sine rule, well, we're going to use a sine rule. So you should have had, it doesn't matter which order, but you're going to say sine 65 divided by, okay, let's just do it the way we've done it. So sine 25 divided by the opposite length, which is x, equals to sine 65 over the opposite length, which is 8.4. Then you cross multiply, so you say x times sine 65 is equals to 8.4 times sine 25. So because you want to find x by itself, you're going to say 8.4 times sine 25 divided by sine 65. So that means x is equals to, if I put that in the calculator, 8.4 times sine 25, and then we divide that by sine 65. That should give you 3.92 centimeters. Okay, so if you got that, well done. If not, check where you went wrong. Probably could have been also a silly mistake, or you might have mixed up the angles and lengths. Now for the next one, we're going to say sine theta over the opposite length, which is 5.6. So remember, this is because we want to find theta now. So just be careful, we have to do inverse sine at the end. Equals to sine 55 over the opposite length, which is 12.5. Let's cross multiply. So we're going to say 12.5 times sine theta is equals to 5.6 times sine 55. So because we want to find sine theta, we're going to do 5.6 times sine 55 divided by 12.5. And theta is basically all of this inverse sine, right? So you're going to do 5.6 times sine 55 and divide that by 12.5. And if you press shift sine answer, that should give you 21.5 degrees. Okay, so if you've got these, well done. And what I'm going to do now is show you how to do the cosine rule. Okay, so this is now the cosine rule, and we're going to use the cosine rule to find the answer to these questions. Now, if you look at these two triangles, right, there's a difference from this and the one that we did previously. In the previous ones, when we use a sine rule, we had two angles that was involved. But you can see here, we only have one angle and three sides. So that should give you the hint normally. Okay, if I only have one angle and three sides, it's the cosine rule. So for the cosine rule, if you don't know the formula, for the cosine, you have two formulas essentially, but the same formula is just rearranged. So the formula for this one is a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos A, and I'll explain to you what these letters mean in a moment. So that's to find the length, right? So this is cosine rule to find the length. Now to find the angle, essentially that's going to be cos A equals to b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. And then this is to find angle. Now you might be thinking like, whoa, what the heck? Essentially, this formula has been derived from this formula. All I'm doing is making cos A the subject in the first formula, and I get this. That's all it is, right? So basically, they just mean the same formula, but just rearranged differently. So now these ABC values, what do they mean? Well, let's look at this first question here, right? We need to find the value of x, and we've got some values that they've given us. So I'm just going to write A, B, C, and capital A like this. Now A is the length that is opposite the angle that you're looking at. So the angle that I have is 40, and the length that is opposite this angle is x. So that is my A. So A is always the length that is opposite the angle that you're looking at. You always got to get that right, because if you get that right or wrong, the whole question is wrong. So make sure that your A is always the length opposite the angle. B and C are basically the two sides that merge to form the 40 degrees. So this 6.5 and 4.5. Doesn't matter which one is B and C here. They could be either, because the answer will still be the same. So that doesn't matter. And then your capital A is 40 degrees. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to sub this in the formula. So what I'm going to do is A squared is going to be x squared equals to, so I'm following this formula, right, to find the length. So x squared, b squared plus c squared, so that's going to be 6.5 squared plus c squared, which is 4.5 squared, minus 2 times b, which is 6.5, times c, which is 4.5, and then times cos A, which is cos 40. So now when you put this in the calculator, what should I give you? So that's 6.5 squared plus 4.5 squared. So that gives 62.5 minus, now if you put that inside the bracket in the calculator, so 2 times 6.5 times 4.5 times cos 40, that should give you 44.81359. And basically now x is equal to, so if you take these away, so 62.5 minus that, and then you square root it because you want to find x by itself, so square root that, that should give you 4.21 as your answer. And that's how you use the cosine rule to find the length. It's pretty straightforward. All you're doing is just putting in a formula and then using your calculator to work it out. Now for the second one, because it's asking us now to find theta here, theta is the unknown, we have to use this formula, right? The second formula to find angle. So again, I'm just going to write my A, B, C values to make sure that I got those right. So A is going to be the length that is opposite the angle. So this is my angle that I'm looking at. The length opposite to that is 10.6. So A is going to be 10.6. B and C, again, doesn't matter which one. So 8.7 and then 5.9. And then your A is going to be theta, right? So now if we put this in the formula, we have cos A, so that's going to be cos theta equals to B squared, which is 8.7 squared, plus C squared, which is 5.9 squared, minus A squared, which is 10.6 squared, over 2BC, which is 2 times B, which is 8.7, times C, which is 5.9. So now cos theta is equal to, so we're just literally putting all of this in the calculator. So 8.7 squared, I'm gonna have to do this near 8.7 squared plus 5.9 squared minus 10.6 squared, and then we're going to divide that by 2 times 8.7 times 5.9. So that should give you minus 0.018118. Now remember, because you're trying to find the angle, you got to make sure that you don't forget to do inverse cos, right? So you press shift cos and then put this answer there, and then that should give you the angle, which is 91 degrees. So obviously shift cos means your answer would be, you'll get something like this, cos minus 1. So remember this, when you're trying to find an angle, you always have to do shift cos or shift sine, whichever formula you're using to get the angle. Okay, so this is how you use the cosine rule to find both the length and angle. So what I'll do now is I'll give you 2 questions to give for you guys to have a go, and yeah, we'll go through this after this. Right, so to find the first question, to find the answer for the first question, which is asking us to find the length of x, I'm going to use a cosine rule. So your a squared is going to be x squared equals to b squared plus c squared. So that's going to be 12 squared plus 10 squared, doesn't matter which order, minus 2 times 12 times 10 times cos 45. So then x squared is equals to, if you put that in your calculator, 12 squared plus 10 squared, that gives 244. And then minus, if you do 2 times 12 times 10 times cos 45, what does that give? 169.705. Now, if you take away and then square root this, so 244 minus that, and then square root it, your answer then should be 8.62. So x should be 8.62. Okay, for the second one, we're going to use to find the angle this time. So we're going to say cos A, so it's going to be cos theta equals b squared, which could be 5.5 or 8.5, doesn't matter, 5.5 squared, b squared plus c squared, so plus 8.5 squared, minus a squared, which is 10.5 squared, over 2bc, which is 2 times 5.5 times 8.5. So then cos theta is equals to 5.5 squared plus 8.5 squared minus 10.5 squared, and then we divide that by 2 times 5.5 times 8.5. So then that answer should give you, it's going to give a negative anyway, minus 0.08288. Now remember, because you're trying to find the angle, press shift cos of this answer, and your angle should be 94.8 degrees to 3SF. So if you got this, great. Looks like you've understood it. If not, just make sure you check it out again. And if it's still anything that you don't understand, put it down in the comments. But that's pretty much sine and cosine rule done. Okay. So if this video has helped you out, please give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and also just comment on other things that you would like me to do or things that you haven't understood from previous videos. And I'm more than happy to help you guys out. Okay. So until the next time, I will see you on the next one.